So, Jenny, can I ask
Thank you, Chair. So we're going to cover off, finally, environmental performance and enforcement. Over the last couple of years, we've seen £300 million in fines and penalties, yet at the same time, we've not seen an increase in performance, an improvement in performance, and we've seen increases instead in sewage and spillage incidents. Why are these penalties not an effective deterrent?
So I think in terms of addressing improving companies' performance, I think there's probably three key elements I would see. One is there's a question about companies' compliance with their current legal requirements. And so we have live enforcement action against all wastewater companies. We've announced draft decisions to impose fines of £164 million on 3 companies. And so there's a set of questions about their compliance with the law. And then we don't just fine companies, we also issue requirements for companies to bring themselves back into compliance with the law. That will help, but compliance is not good enough. We need to see companies improve their performance. And so we think financial incentives have a role in that process. So this is setting penalties on the level of each pollution incident. But you're absolutely right. I don't think that in itself, that helps. That helps gives investors the incentives to drive company management to improve. But we also need to be, and this is coming back to the Chair's challenge about how we're changing our role as a regulator. I think if you'd spoken to us 5 years ago, we had said we'd set the incentives and expect that to do the job. As Helen talked about earlier, we now sit down and engage with the company. We talk to them about their plans, what they're doing to improve, in particular to identify what's driving the pollution incident. So when you talk to a company, it's not usually just one cause. They may have a problem with a particular part of the infrastructure. So it's getting to that, understanding what's driving that incident, and then how can they change the operational practices, how can they change their maintenance, how can they change their investment plans to address those issues. And then it may also require differences in approach, innovation, and that comes back to the role of the innovation fund that we've set out.
What is the most, you talked about sitting down with the water companies and understanding kind of what drives it. What, in your experience, is the most common reason for those spillage or sewage incidents that you see?
So often, conversations that I have with the water companies, they explain that there are failures, often power failures at the wastewater treatment works. So building power resilience and backup power is really important to companies. Parts of their assets may fail either because they have not been used within the ways that they should be, or they needed to be replaced or maintained. And part of it is actually response. So when something starts to spill, understand that, get out there, look at it and solve the problem before it becomes a breach of permits.
Just building on that, I think one of the challenges you face with companies is that often they're not quick enough to get to the root causes, what's driving the problem. So, understanding not just at that particular sewage treatment works what happens, but understanding the lessons for all their sewage treatment works. So I think getting companies to understand, because when we talk to companies, the better companies have a sort of a clear line of sight between their actions they're taking and the outcomes that they're getting. When we talk to companies that are struggling with their performance, they often have a much poorer grasp on what's going wrong, or what's causing what's going wrong, should I say, in order to correct it.
Which are the better companies?
So in terms of the better performers we've seen in the current period, so companies like Wessex Water, Severn Trent, United Utilities in some areas of its performance. Yes.
Can I just add that in the case of United Utilities, they are proactively using AI-enabled tools to target maintenance in advance of something needing to be something going wrong, and we think that's a model that could be exported to the rest of the world.
Spills and leaks.
Yes.
Yeah. So one thing that comes up with me, and I'm sure with my fellow committee members a lot whenever we talk to constituents about sewage in particular, is the question of will we ever get to a point where that we are with sewage spill free? Will our infrastructure, I appreciate our infrastructure is incredibly old, is incredibly complex, and some of the issues that you set out just a moment ago about the most frequent reasons for those kind of the sewage spills that we experience are incredibly complex and hard to manage. Will this country ever get to a point where our rivers, our canals, our waterways and our seas are sewage free?
In terms of the government's targets, so getting to zero serious pollution incidents is the expectation. So that's on the pollution incidents which is called serious harm. At the other end of the scale, in terms of sewage discharges, the government goals and plan is by 2050 for the sector to have all sewage discharge points operated at no more than 10 times per year. So it's not to get to zero in the space.
Yeah.
The reason for that is practicality. The problem is not so much the age of the infrastructure. I've seen some wonderful examples of very old assets operating very well, and seen some examples of some younger assets failing quite early in life. So, but it is about the integration of surface water drainage and wastewater systems. I think we are, about to uncover a lot of good ways of driving down sewage discharges. So I've been on sites where we've seen local government assets on surface water drainage directly connected into sewers, leading to sewage spills. I think getting a much better grip on what's driving the problem, taking action to prevent it. But this is about stopping rainwater getting into sewers, and then building storage and smart technology on networks to help better manage the excesses when they happen. And then finally, at the other end, in terms of the treatment. So, for example, some companies have been trialling reed bed treatments on sewage discharges. So if you do have a sewage discharge point which is operating, treat it and make sure that the discharges coming out of it are fine. And so that's, at the moment, that's not permitted by the Environment Agency in terms of as a resolution, but it is as a direction of travel. So we think we can do much better. But in terms of the current aspirations is not to get down to zero sewage spills. I appreciate that will be frustrating for people. We think the sector needs to take action to drive down sewage spills by, quite dramatically over the next 5 years. But we're not going to get to the point of getting to zero sewage spills.
Okay, understood. You talked, David, earlier about the investigation that's ongoing, has been ongoing since 2021, and I appreciate, and you mentioned that there has been already, I think it's 168 million pounds in fines that have been issued to Thames, Yorkshire and Northumbrian Water. Why is it taking so long, and when can we expect this investigation to conclude?
Yeah, so I share your appetite. I would like to see these resolved as soon as possible. We have increased the level of our resources in our enforcement function. So since I've become Chief Executive, we've trebled the scale of that, and that's helped us cope with this workload. But each of these investigations is complex, serious. We've also faced legal action from companies to slow us down. So Thames Water took a judicial review against OFWAT at an early stage. That put our work on hold for several months, but we are making good progress. We've issued a draft decision for them. We will try to follow. Obviously, we're not be careful, I'm not prejudging the outcomes of any of these investigations as well, but we will reach a resolution, whether that's decide not to take action further or whether to progress to final on those three companies. And then we're making good progress in terms of the other three companies that we started on in 2021. More recently, we've opened investigations against 4 further companies, and we'll endeavour to close those as soon as we can as well.
Great. Thank you.